Hello everyone, welcome back to Road to 1K, or, well, it's actually Return to 1K now. This is Season 2, actually. The reason for that is the map that we're going to be covering today. It's a Tier 3 fog match against Maroof on the map Cliff Remix. As you can see, knocked me down from my barely being in the 1K range to back down to 980. So, yeah, that's what we're going to be covering today, so let's get started with it. As you can see, the matchup was Kindle versus Sonja, and that's going to be a pretty big part of why I ended up losing so heavily. Not to knock Maroof. Maroof did a really good job. They played really well. I'm just saying. It would have been a bit closer if I had picked someone other than Sonja. But the reason why, and I will get into why Sonja is super bad on this map later, but it'll generally it'll end up revolving around the fact this is a 2 comm tower map. And what I mean by 2 comm tower map, even though there are 4 comm towers on the map, it's 2 comm towers per side. But I will go into that a little bit later, after I do a general summary of the map. So the thing about Cliff Remix is you start out with a black boat here, and you have these shoals here that you can grab infantry from and ferry them over to this cliff side over here. There are shoals here, but they're blocked by this river as well, right here. So you can't really move around. You can't use the black boat to deploy them over here. But as you can see here, there are some strangely colored labs here. What are they for? Well, one of the big gimmicks of Cliff Remix is that your opponent gets labs basically not only on these cliff sides over here, but also interspersed within your sort of like this base area. And the reason why those are there is to give your opponents a little bit of info on how you're deploying your units, when you're deploying them, how quickly you're doing it, and so on. So whenever you ferry infantry from this base to these labs over here, your opponent's going to be able to know about it, and they're going to be able to know not only where you're deploying them, but also if you're bringing over any mechs over here. And that's pretty important as well, because just due to the nature of the black boat over here, and the fact that landers are pretty expensive, well, you could get a lander on this map, but because it's 12k, that's like basically 2 tanks that you wouldn't have, so I don't think it's worth it really, but assuming that you're just using the black boat, that means that you're only going to be deploying infantry, mechs, and maybe battlecopters over here in this area. Which, honestly, it's good enough to get a nice little foothold over here, because you have the infantry to capture, you have the mechs to take care of vehicles, and then you have the battlecopters to take care of other battlecopters. It's just going to be a little bit slow pushing in this way with just those 3 units. So that's the cliffside area. It's this sort of area basically up until this comm tower and this these cities is sort of the extent of where you're going to be able to get to with just your infantry. Ideally, anyways. Then you have this artery right here. You have these pipe seams which you need to blast open in order to get not only a more efficient way to move your units through, because this artery here is blocked off until you blast this open, and this is a pretty good artery because it opens up basically your opponent's cliffside and this entire area to moving in with units from this side. But then you also have this artery here, which is basically at the center of the map, and it's important to blast this open so you can just send in units here to try and cut off your opponent's units as they try to force front shift or something like that in this area. There's also the before you blast open the pipelines, there's also this artery here that you can send your vehicles through. Because there are so many rivers and stuff, you can generally send your infantry past the rivers anyways. But you need to send your vehicles through this way. So early on, not only is it going to take you a bit longer to reinforce with your vehicles, but it's also going to be giving your opponent intel on what you're sending that way. Now, you sort of have to do that, but it's basically because otherwise your opponent's just going to be able to push in as far as they want with their infantry this way, and they'll be able to just take map control if you don't push through here. As you will see. But so the labs end up not making too much of a difference overall, but it does give you a bit of intel and lets you know if your opponent's sending out like a recon or a sync or something like that. There's the airport here, which is also super important. The airport's good for sending battlecopters over here a little bit, even though you can your opponent can send like anti-air there if you're backing up. If you're using like infantry, a couple of mechs to take care of the anti-air mainly. And then battlecopters, that's pretty good over here. If your opponent isn't investing too heavily in this area. And then this artery is super important because it allows you to not only move in like this and cut off your opponent's main forces from... It not only allows you to reinforce the infantry you sent this way by sending your units this way, but also allows you to interrupt any like anti-air or recons that your opponent's trying to send into this area to help back up these units by just sending Tinker So down this way to control this artery. This is a pretty important area to have map control of, even though it's so open with all the roads, and there isn't really much forest cover either, but it's a really important area to keep control of. So if you can keep control of this area and get that on lock, you basically won. Because you'll be able to if you have this area under control, you can decide where to send your units and just overwhelm your opponent's units on. You'll basically be dividing the map. You'll basically be cutting off your opponent's units from being able to front switch, and that's a super big important aspect of this map, is being able to front switch because of how dynamic it is. So that's that. Comm towers, there's the couple in the corner, which are super far away from... Well, it depends. If on your cliff side, you can move in and capture it pretty easily, but if you're trying to push against this cliff side, it's going to be really... it's going to be a pretty long walk for infantry, so you need to make sure that you're keeping your infantry healthy for when they actually need to push into these areas. Then you have the two more central comm towers. This is a 2 comm tower map. I think I covered what that means, but just to touch on it again, it means there are it means there are 4 comm towers total on the map, which means if both players are playing optimally, they should have 2. Meaning, and the main reason for why this matters is instead of having on most maps just the single comm tower, it's a switch between 10 and 20% firepower and 20 and 30% firepower. And those are some pretty important benchmarks, which I will get into in a little bit. I might do it during the replay actually, so I'll wait a little bit on that. But just know that those are important benchmarks for a good number of reasons. We go into the map analysis, and as you can see, Sonja has 42% win rate here because she's pretty bad on this map. Lashes the other tier 3, who's like bad because she's just Lash. But as you can see here, Rachel's good, pretty good. She's got 55%, 54% on Kindle, and Andy as well, and then 52, I think? Yeah, 52 on Drake. So basically, anyone who's not Sonja and Lash do really well on this map, and then Lash does okay. She does okay. But again, I will cover why that is in a little bit. And it will have to do with that damage chart, actually. But let's go ahead and get started with the replay. So, as you can see here, building infantry, pretty standard. What's interesting for player 2 is that extra infantry lets player 2 move in on the harbor here a little bit earlier, meaning that but it's sort of kind of a bit of a trap, because what you really want to do is send your infantry across to the shore as soon as you can, just the single infantry, because the infantry capping this city can just move onto this harbor and cap that one. They can just chain like that. So you don't really want to take this infantry from here in order to these infantry from here in order to cap on this side. You really just generally want to be ferrying infantry from this base to the shore, showing back and forth. Maybe sending them to this harbor if you want to get them out over here, but that's about it. As you can see, he does that, and he's already ferrying more infantry here, and he's got, and by just doing it like this, he's able to get the 2 infantry next turn anyways, and he's going for a recon early as well, which will be important. I think the early recon is actually super good on this map. I think he's going to send this guy towards the airport next, if I remember correctly. Yeah. So that's another thing. It's a 2-turn train from the harbor to this airport. So you generally don't want to do what I did. It'll end up screwing up your capture game. And he's going for we're both going for the artillery pretty early on as well to take care of these pipe seams, obviously. And I think we both go for the central ones as well, both trying to get that central map control as early as we can. Recons are good in this map for a couple of reasons. First of all, they have the good vision, and it's a pretty flat and open map, so that's always useful. You know, just recon things. But the other reason is recons are very good in this area because they force your opponent to build mechs to deal with them. Because the only way that you can really deal with recons in this area, at least early on, is with a mech, because you can't really reinforce this area with tanks yet. And the recon is allowed to basically just have free reign of this entire area with the recon. Why is it good to make your opponents build mechs like this? Well, it's a training for funds, meaning that they have less funds to build tanks, meaning that you can push, if you just build up a nice wall of tanks, you can push a lot harder with that. So there's that. They also have less money for recons or anti-airs or stuff like that as well. So although I think mechs are like alright on this side if you want to use them in conjunction with like battle coppers and stuff. It's just very specific, and you have to use them very specifically. But as you can see here, because mechs only have 2 move, my opponent is actually able to just move on to this city for free with his recon and just prevent me from doing much here. So he's severely cutting off my early income game and capture game, while he's able to have just a run free with his infantry here, push all the way into this city even. So he's already got these cities captured. He's going to be pushing in towards this one and this one. I don't think he's going to get these ones because I'm going to be pushing this way to reinforce with my units here. And I think he's going to go for be reinforced on this side as well. But it's gonna, just the income lead that he's gonna be taking pretty early on is gonna be very, very nice for him. So as you can see, I'm building up the mechs over there. Usually when you're building mechs, you need like a couple of them just so that they're covering each other. What I should have done here was move this mech here, because then he wouldn't have been able to move in like that with his recon and take a nice shot off on my infantry, and it's for free basically. I can't really do much against his recon with just the infantry. I need to move my mechs into range in order to deal with the recon. So yeah, that's basically it for this. I should have moved him here because if he wanted to move in and attack my mech, and then I also should have put the moving mech here, infantry here, so that I'm covering the capping infantry with my mech, and then I'm covering my other mech with my mech here. I'll open a move planner real quick just to show off what that would look like. But basically, the recon wouldn't be able to attack into either of these because he's covering the mech covering him here. And if he wants to move into the mech, not only would he take a counterattack with the mech, but I'd also be able to move in from my own mech because he'd have to attack from one of these two tiles, which my other mech can reach. So that would have been the perfect move, but instead I'm getting cucked in the capture game here like that. And then I'm moving in with my tanks on this side as well. Honestly, like, I should have probably just kept my infantry there and kept on capping, maybe join cap if I try for a join cap and then just attack my infantry from like the road or something. Just to contest this a bit more. Because otherwise it's gonna take, as you can see, as ended up happening, it's taking forever for me to actually cap this comm tower, but moving in like that ended up slowing it down by even another turn, so it ends up being really bad for me. And that turn was crucial as well because it's allowing him to move in with his other forces here. He's got a second recon so that he can see. But because I've been behind on the income, not only have I been behind on the income, but I've also been forced to divert a good amount of it to mechs here, so I haven't actually been able to build recons or even anti-air so far, so that's been pretty bad for me overall. I finally get my own battlecopter, but like, honestly what I should have done with this was just send it left. Because I think he moves his anti-air this way to try and help out over here, but if I had moved my battlecopter to left, I would have been able to actually deal with his battlecopter. But alas, that wasn't going to happen. And I don't think that this mech spam over here is very good anyways, overall. But, oh well. So, I'm moving in, trying to cap these cities, but he's actually going to be able to interrupt me there as well, so it's not going to be too good for me on that front. I'm building a medium tank here, pushing it for this artery that I've finally moved over, and I have the medium tank and artillery, so those two in combination is pretty good as well. Plus I have a battlecopter here to back it up. Generally when you have you're investing in a medium tank, you not only need a bunch of mechs, but you generally want like maybe one artillery to back it up and a battlecopter as well. And the reason for that is just to help make it easier to deal with other medium tanks. So yeah, that's that. As you can see here, I still have a while to go for capping my comm tower. So that's not very good at all. But he's already got 2. Now actually I'm going to quickly cover the 2 comm tower thing and why 20% firepower matters a lot. So the reason why this is because when you get up to 20% firepower, this actually guarantees a 2-hit KO against opposing like units on cities. So it's 46 plus that's 4 plus 54. That's 100. So that's a guaranteed kill. And quickly gonna go right by the damage chart. This is for infantry and tanks. So infantry versus infantry, medium tanks versus medium tanks, mechs versus mechs. Mega tanks versus mega tanks aren't on that list, but neo tanks versus neo tanks is, as well as tanks versus tanks. So, as you can see, 20% is actually a pretty big what's the word? I guess a bar? No, not bar. It's a pretty good baseline? Crap, I knew, whatever. It's a pretty good spot to be at because it's in a checkpoint. Whatever. It's a benchmark, fucking benchmark is what I'm thinking of. But it's a good benchmark because it allows you to actually push into properties effectively. The only issue with Sonja is that she actually isn't able to do that. She isn't actually even able to do that with 3 comm towers. She only does 51, so that's not a guarantee. So her bad luck comes back to bite her really hard on 2 comm tower maps. Honestly, because of her bad luck, I feel like Sonja should probably be tier 4 in fog on 2 comm tower maps. It's just that bad for her. I think she can generally pull ahead, push through it on other types of maps, but like on 2 comm tower, the income differential is, that benchmark is so important, and she just doesn't hit it. So I actually do manage to get this city, but my opponent is actually able to, because my opponent moved in with a battlecopter, and he's got a second one to back it up as well. But because my opponent moved in with a battlecopter, he's actually just overwhelming my infantry here. He's taking out basically all my mechs. So that entire investment has been destroyed because I didn't back it up with the battlecopter properly. And because I moved in with a battlecopter over here, it's just going to die. So honestly, if I had just sent both of them over here, I would be in a much better spot. But because I didn't, we're stuck with this. The other issue is that he's got basically all of his other forces in this area. So spamming mechs over here is actually coming back to haunt me really badly. He pops his power as well, so that mech's gonna be dead basically, and it's gonna be draining my funds too, which isn't gonna be very good for me. But I think this push here basically definitely secured his win. As you can see, income, but just the unit value alone looks like it's about 25k apart after that push. And then I think that we're not really far away in unit count, but like so many of my units are damaged anyways. I don't think that the unit count really is super accurate. I feel like because I have so many damaged units, I'm behind in it right now. So there's that. I'm trying to push in a bit as much as I can over here, but he's just going to be able to overwhelm me as time goes on. As you can see here, I'm not actually able to cap this effectively with this infantry. I don't even know what I'm doing with this infantry. What I should be doing with him is join capping. I'll probably just join with this infantry so that I could cap this property a little bit faster, probably. Would be the best thing to do with it, because I'm never going to be able to cap this with a 2 health infantry. It's just not going to happen. But he's making good gains over here. He's falling back over here with these guys. And moving it over here. I think that your opponent is able to see how much for capping as well. So Sonja's hidden HP doesn't hide that it's a 2 health infantry. So I think I might have been trying to bluff a cap with him, but like it's not going to make a difference here. He's not actually able to. Well, no, it's Sonja. She's not gonna have enough damage to do that. I think. Let's double check that. Because with 2 Comm towers, she might be able to. No. Not even close. So it is just a pretty. It's actually a pretty good luck roll for Sonja to get that much damage, but my Battlecopter is just going to go down next turn because she got another one falling up there. And as you can see, the rest of this map is mainly just amassing units. But my opponent, I think, does a pretty good job of just playing around with their power meter this match. We're holding off for a little bit because I don't have the charge for it, but as you can see, he completely overwhelmed me over here. And I'm like, he's falling back from this area, but I don't have the infantry over here to actually take advantage of that. So my opponent's going to get a crazy large income lead before I'm able to actually contest this. And then here I should probably just join cap there maybe. Or something like that. But anyways, bottom line is we're going to be amassing our units towards the center for a pretty big push against each other, but because Kindle's been so far ahead for so long, like, she's just going to be able to push in and take losses if she needs to. I actually built a missile here because I was getting a little bit scared that he'd move in with his battlecopters over here and start harassing this base, but obviously he's not going to do that. That'd be pretty dumb of him to do that, actually, honestly. So I think this turn, no, it's the next turn that I have this big push. I'm lining up for a push here, but like he's got so much stuff that I'm not gonna be able to push effectively into that block at all. This is where the artillery starts to come into use. Is when you have enough stuff when you have enough of a unit advantage that you can just wall off with your direct units and then have the artillery covering your direct units, because at that point they're going to get free damage off. Your opponent's not going to be really going to be able to move into the artillery and stuff, but like even if they do, like you can just move in with the direct units and wipe away the rest of the units. I'm moving with a medium tank thinking it would be pretty safe. And if a battlecopter too, not seeing either of these units. So I'm lining up here for a pretty devastating push for my opponent next turn. But as you can see, Kindle's really good against Sonja because even on just a general map without 2 Comm towers, just because she can spam her urban blight, and Sonja sort of needs to wait for her counter break against Kindle. She can use enhanced vision, but like it's not powerful enough in comparison to the sort of global damage. And like this this push is crazy, by the way. This is like, I saw this push and I'm just like, oh god, oh god, oh god. It hurts so much. Why? I'm just gonna move back and play the entire thing. Well, I got that there, but like, look at this. She's just able to overwhelm me like crazy and just pick me apart. And a big part of the reason why he's able to do this is because he's got 3 Comm towers right now, so that's 30% firepower. So that's even bigger than what he had before. And then he pops Urban Blight as well, finally. Moving in like that, takes out my recon, takes a shot off on my poor missile. Like, oh, it's just unfortunate. It's just unfortunate. You hate to see it. You hate to see it. But yeah, I take the shot off onto his battlecopter with my missile, and I probably could have killed it if I had moved in with a medium tank, but I just resigned anyway because it's been over for like probably the last 10 turns. The fact that he was able to get that second power pop And he was able to just move in with all of that stuff. Was like, oh, I'm just completely demoralized. But yeah, that's it. Let's go into the endgame summary, I guess. So, a couple of reasons why I lost. Picking Sonja on a 2-comm tower map was a big mistake because I was able to. Not only did I not really get the same types of advantages from having 2-comm towers, having the guaranteed 2-hit KO onto the cities, as I mentioned earlier, but against Kindle, because of how spread out the map is, it sort of makes it impossible for you to push into faraway areas like this with your infantry, because it just takes so long for them to walk all this way, and if they take even like a single urban blight, it's going to take even longer. It's just going to keep on spiraling out of control if you don't effectively reinforce them. So I think maybe a transfer copter, if I were going to push heavily in this way. Well, I do have a transfer copter, actually. Would have been a good idea. But I should have been using it more to ferry stuff than block over here. That push at the end was definitely a bad move, but I think overall, my opponent just had the opening down a lot better than I did. Actually, I don't think I had any idea of what to do for the opening. And that's also another important thing that you can do, is you can go into Move Planner. And like this isn't the right spot, but let's take a look at like this. You can move into the Move Planner, and then you can just plan out your opening. And if you want to work on it and just basically optimize it so that you get as much of an advantage as you can early game, that's an important thing to do. You can also always look at other people's replays and see what they do, but I didn't do that on this map, which this map you kind of sort of need to know what you're doing, otherwise you get cut off. Moving in like this with the mechs was another bad idea. I think it could have been okay if I had moved in with if I had backed them up with my battlecopters, but instead of splitting them up, but oh well. And yeah, I think generally what you want to do in this map is you want to, instead of pushing in like this way with most of your army, you want to move in your units like this to reinforce your infantry as best as you can with your army. Here, like my opponent did. Yeah, overall, Kindle's really good on this map. I think basically every tier for Recio except for Sonja and Lash are really good on this map. And it's because of how long it is, I guess. It's a big map that doesn't look super big because of the cliffs thing, I guess, to summarize. But yeah, that should be it for today. So yeah, next week I think I'm going to skip this change map because it's a 10-day high funds match. So I'm going to probably skip that, and next Sunday, is going to be taking a look at this map against Preaker. This match against Preaker. It's a standard tier 2 match, and it's going to show off a bit of the Olaf versus Eagle matchup. So you can look forward to that. As always, like, subscribe, leave a comment if you want. But yeah, so that should be it for today, though. And I will see you next Sunday. So see you then.